I'll ask you, Professor Mehmet, you mentioned that Adam al-Salam was human, but he was slightly different. There was that name you gave. I wrote it down, but I can't find it. So are you suggesting that he appeared like that on Earth?
Yeah, I didn't say he was slightly different.
As in, he wasn't a Homo sapien?
Well, we call these things Homo sapien, Neanderthal, because they have, but they look like racial differences.
Okay.
Like there was a documentary about Neanderthals. They actually put they put things on a skull. They produce a face. They produced that, and the person was dressed and sent into a railway, and nobody thought that was not a human being. So just to prove the point that Neanderthals were human, or human-like,
Yeah.
So we don't know obviously what Adam alayhi salam, how he was physically, but he was created as a human being, of course. And whatever we call that first human being, this Homo heidelbergensis was a human being. But over time, obviously, racial things come out. The DNA of Adam alayhi salam had all races in it. Like our DNA is flexible in a sense that, according to the environment, certain genes become more dominant, like the being whiteness or darkness of the skin, or certain height. Like if you go to a poor country with poor nutrition, everyone's skinny and short. You go to a country well off, everyone's tall and big, But why? Because they eat protein when they're growing up and they develop far quicker. So the environment also affects the way we appear. So in that respect, the Quran's description of human being, which is Adam, is exactly the same as us, and also same as with all these fossils that we're finding.
Okay, I guess on that point, so thank you for voting some of these. Now we're getting more like 12 votes, which is true, which is good. Dr. Omer, and so we might be going back and forth on some topics, but that's okay. We'll reiterate some of the points that were made. What would be your objection to theistic evolution? You address the scientific gaps, but same can be said about your everything has an Adam theory.
Yes. Well, theistic evolution, as you know, what they're claiming is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the species through evolution. That's the argument of theistic evolution. What is my objective about it? The objective is it has no theological basis, nothing in the Quran. And in regards to scientific perspective, biologically, as I mentioned there as well, it hasn't been tested. There is no empirical evidence. There's no empirical data. There is no observational data of macroevolution. So I think this issue initially should be solved through scientific means. We need to have, solid evidence. And one thing that people make mistake with a lot, I'll be very short, very brief. When evolutionists speak about evolution, theistic evolutionists as well, they say that there's ample evidence. There's a lot of evidence. They confuse evidence with proof. They are two different things. They make that a common mistake. Evidence is something you use to prove something. The more evidence you gather, the closer you are to the proof. Proof is a different thing. Like I mentioned before, gravity, law of gravity, it has proof. But with evolution, they show some evidences, like transitional fossils and so on. But here's the interesting thing. One person argued in regards to evolution, there are about 200 to 300 transitional fossils that we have. None of these fossils exist now as a living being. None of them. Every living species we come across on Earth now fully evolved according to evolution. Where is the transitional forms then as a living beings? Some of them should have survived, in regards to the previous one.
Like they just don't exist anymore? No?
That's the only argument. They say they're all extinct. Then how do we know they are transitional fossils? So we need to have a time machine, go back, actually record these things as they are the transitional fossils. So theistic evolution, when you involve God in there, in particular in regards to Muslims, then you need evidence from the Quran. Like one Muslim theistic evolutionist said to me, there is nothing in the Quran, no verse that denies evolution. I said to him, is there any evidence that supports evolution? See, when Allah talks about our creation in detail, we created Adam from, clay. We created all living beings from water. There's all detail. Why wouldn't the Quran say we created humans from apes? If it was the case. So there is no evidence in the Quran supporting theistic evolution either. So at the end of the day, the problem here is the mechanism, how evolution works. Not that creation is. And people mix up what we call tekamül, which means gradual progress of living beings, with evolution, with Darwinian evolution. As I mentioned once before, I think we mentioned it in Sydney too, if you plant a lemon seed, it will give you a lemon tree. Maybe you can, what they do, they craft, yeah? And you can produce oranges or something similar to all nectarines, they're similar. But you don't plant a lemon, seed and get a banana. So this is what macroevolution argues, and we have no evidence for it, scientific evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Can I comment on that, because that's a very important question. Now, I think you're saying is that we can accept, or maybe I should speak for myself, that we can accept small changes, maybe in DNA through mutation or not, or that DNA has flexibility in its expressions to produce, various, like the dogs, for example. They all come from wolves, but they all look different. So over time, through certain breeding and environmental changes, living in homes. But going from species to species, like these are big changes, because there's huge difference, like the coding in the brain, DNA, brain size, structural changes, the enzymes, the way you digest the food, breathing, like kidneys of fish are very different to kidneys of land animals. These are huge changes that cannot happen by chance or in very long periods of changes. So this is the issue. That's what you mean by everything has an Adam, right?
Yes,
so,
yes.
So there's actually in Quran there are verses where it says Allah originates creation and then repeats it. So this is important. In another verse it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything in pairs. Like let's say you have an animal that made all the changes and that all of a sudden became another species, right? But the female or the male has to also change.
Yeah.
So you get the changes have to occur in both male and female. You can't have it on one, and so that's why the pair Quran emphasizes that pair a lot. Because once you have a pair of animals, then you can repeat that; they can reproduce. This is very clearly laid out in the Quran. Actually, the Quran repeats this a lot in multiple verses. It's telling us how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating. So basically, at certain times, the world climate or environment changes so much that the certain species that are created for those cannot survive in those, so they go extinct. New species with those new environments have to be created, so in pairs, and then they reproduce. The fossil evidence shows this as well, like on the rock layers. You have these animals for a long time, the same species, and then all of a sudden they go extinct. And then on the next layer, just up above it, whole new species, like millions of species come out. How? Like there's no gradual gradation of even appearance of species on Earth.
I just want to ask you a question, Professor Mehmet, the next one. So what, because we've been talking about apes, and we saw that image of the ape, which we can't unsee now. But what does the evolution theory say about species like apes existing as they do now? Why did select apes evolve to walk on hind legs? Why don't they evolve now? If we can just Because
So what was the
like
last?
Why
the
doesn't
apes,
the apes
they,
evolve?
you know, they evolved and some walk on their hind legs. You mentioned that as well. Why aren't they evolving now? And I guess if there is a type that walks on hind legs, why?
Look, I personally think that type of argument is okay, but it doesn't really hold. It is possible to have a change in something, and that, like, let's say you built this building, we built a new mosque. This building can still appear. You don't have to destroy it. It can still continue to exist while there's a new one as well. It's because they can still survive in the environment. Like I guess sometimes that's put as a point, as evidence that there is no evolution. I guess it is an argument, but I think it's a weak argument.
With everything else considered.
Can I say something in regards to that? If you look at the evolutionary tree of humans, in particular, they make this tree, as myself said as well. And if you go back from the tree to the root, apes, or we should say primates, really. They call them hominins, that's where we all come from. At the root, you have all these, primate species. There's one branch goes all the way to the gorillas. There's one branch goes all the way to the chimpanzees, bonobos. But there's one branch on the way, you get all these different species, all the way to humans. The others, 20 million years, orangutan is an orangutan. Gorilla is a gorilla. Chimpanzee is a chimpanzee. Just one branch, you have all these Homo erectus, Homo this, Homo that, Homo afrancensis. All these changes, it happened just in one branch. So the apes don't really walk on, they're not bipedal. It's unnatural for them. They do walk sometimes on two, legs, but it is not natural. There is some research which says if chimps walk on their two legs for a long time, they have brain hemorrhages. It's not natural for them. Their body is not designed for that. And there's no reason for them to evolve either. Imagine when you first evolved, you lost all your fur, and you don't have the protection of the trees. How you survive? Is it a favorable adaptation? It is not. It is not. It will be more difficult for you to survive. A naked being can't climb trees. How are they going to protect themselves? So it is not really favorable when you talk about. When you think about it, sorry.
Okay. So, Dr. Omer, you've got the mic. We're going a bit different topic now, going to the top with regards to votes. Is it true humans were over 30 meters back then? We've heard this a lot, probably. I always...
Yeah, 60...
I was always
cubits
told...
tall, yeah.
Sorry?
60 cubits tall.
Yeah. I was always told Prophet Adam was much larger compared to modern day humans. So we do get that.
There is actually a hadith about that, about Adam al-salām's creation, and it's a 60 cubit tall. Now, there's a book published, The Height of Adam al-salām, by a hadith scholar, like contemporary scholar. It was published in 2022. I have a copy of it at home. I read that book. And I should have brought it, maybe. You can find it online. That does a very nice analysis of this issue. And just briefly, because we don't have time to go into the book-length answer, there are, as you know, the hadith come from different channels, like narrations. So this particular hadith comes from 5 other multiple channels. And in those versions of the hadith, the height of Adam al-salām is not included. It's not. It doesn't appear on every narration. So it looks like somewhere that was added, and maybe scholars preferred that for some reason. But I actually, because sometimes when you have these kind of discrepancies, you got to go back and check Israeliyat. So I was just wondered, where did this come from? And I actually asked some Jewish rabbis, these experts, I said, without telling this hadith, I said to them, is there anything in the Jewish religion or sources about height of Adam being very tall, They said, yeah, there is. And but in the Jewish tradition, it's like his height was from ground to the sky, it's very tall. And it's I think it comes from that somehow. But the thing is, it's not possible for a human being to be that tall. You have to have legs like elephant legs, or even like dinosaurs, and just eating, walking is going to be a problem. Like, why create? The Quran says, ahsan al-taqweem, like human beings created ahsan al-taqweem. Why create big and then reduce? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit with the fossil records at all. We've always been this height,
Yeah.
Did you want to add to that? I think
Yes, just a very short thing. There are no such fossil records in regards to human beings being that big and tall. We have no skeletons, no fossils at all. My view is quite similar with Mehmet Hoca. Human being with 30, 40 meters anatomically is not sustainable, can't survive. We have a thing called giantism. Some people grow up to 2.7 meters or something. They don't live long, usually, if you look at historically, because their body cannot sustain that weight and that. So I don't think Adam alayhi salam was tall like that. Could be in Jannah, according to some people, They say that was his height in Jannah. I don't know how accurate that is. But I don't think on earth he was that tall. That's my view.
Okay, there we go. All right, the next question, Professor Mehmet, will ask that to you. How do Muslims attempt to argue the existence of the soul in evolutionary discourse? So Muslims attempt to argue.
Don't usually argue that, but we Muslims accept spirit or soul or ruh.
I guess in the evolutionary discourse, though, in that context. Or are you saying
evolution? Those who believe in evolution, or those scientists who propose evolution, well, they don't accept spirit. They don't accept that there is a spirit to human beings. They call that dualism, like that you have a physical side and then you have a mind or a spirit. This is a philosophical discussion. It's not about science. Doesn't look at this at all. They look at, as I mentioned in my presentation, they completely look at human being as a physical material being, and that whatever we think, all this mind, akal and intelligence, it comes from the brain. But one of the things that I read in that book years ago when I was younger, there was something that was really nice, and I'll never forget that. They say that, when you die, they can make dead body move by putting electrodes or touching electricity touching in the brain. They can make a leg move up or arm twitch. So actually, like 200 years ago, when they first did that, people were shocked. This Frankenstein comes from that. When this lady saw that, she wrote the novel Frankenstein, put electricity and comes alive. But the book was saying that you can do that, but you can never make a dead person play the piano by touching the parts of the brain. Or write a book. Like, that comes from the spirit. Like, spirit is the software of the body. Software means algorithms. Like, we know, even the scientists accept that there are algorithms in the brain. But where is it? Like, is it in the circuitry? Like, the neurons just make connections.
Yeah.
Like, there's no algorithm in the neuron itself. This is why they can't prove that it doesn't exist. But we know the effect; it exists.
Look, with the spirit, maybe we should add this. There's a verse in the Quran, as you all know. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. So it's a commandment from your Lord. It's something that not much information was given to us, so you cannot explain it scientifically. It is beyond matter, so it's not a material thing, the spirit. That is why evolutionists cannot explain this, whether they are theistic evolutionists or non-theistic evolutionists. If theistic evolutionists has to just accept what the verses say, if they believe in the Quran, they will just say it's something metaphysical. It was placed into a human being. They cannot actually provide some, scientific evidence to it. But as Mehmet Hoca also said, we know from the experience, we know from the effects, like when we sleep, we dream, and we see things that we never seen before. We go to places we never visited before. In fact, we see places beyond this world, which is not really a data in our brains. So you cannot explain it through, biological or physical means. So we have this spiritual side. I don't think it can ever be explained by science.
So are we saying that science definitely has its limitations then? It seems that through the discussions we've had, science is an important part of the conversation, supporting understanding life, but it seems to have its limitations.
Can I say that science doesn't concern itself with these questions? Like sometimes they say they don't look into it. They say it's not the job of science. I don't want to bash science because I love science. If I wasn't, a theologian or Islamic studies, I would be a scientist, I think. But it's really good that there are people out there, scientists, that are investigating cells, the nucleus, DNA, discovering its structure, how the brain, looking at the neurons. And these are fantastic things. The thing is, the more we do investigations through science and the more things that we discover, that actually supports intelligent design rather than evolution. Because at the time of Darwin, he said the cells in our bodies, it's just protoplasm, that is like a blob of jelly-like thing. That's it. But now we know it's not. The cells have a DNA and then it has machines. And these machines, Dr. Omer touched, these machines are made from proteins. Like proteins, that's why important. And one of the things many people don't know is protein, like chicken you eat, eggs, you get protein. But what protein is, what makes it distinctive is that they fold in a certain way. These are very long chains of carbon, organic compounds, but they fold at certain key locations to make shapes or machines, like three-dimensional shapes. And the thing is, for these things to work, or for you to produce, you have to see it at that atomic level, the shape. So like when you're designing a machine, you know what you're designing, you know the dimensions, how long it's supposed to be, the curves, corners, So the creator must see all these things at that atomic level, that's required. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I guess so we're not anti-science, everyone. Science is I suppose science can help enhance or strengthen our faith because we're able to understand things that we otherwise would not. Okay, so I wanted to move on. This is a different topic. I honestly don't know how this got so many votes. And by the way, just want to plug our YouTube channel at this stage because this question is one that we actually did with Dr. Omer, and we've done similar ones with Professor Mehmet. So there is an Isra YouTube channel where we do cover a lot of these topics. And I would highly recommend that, if you haven't subscribed. Isra Academy is the name of the YouTube channel. We're also on podcasts now, Spotify, Apple, and there's about 8 different outlets. So if you're more of a podcast person, please have a listen. So we did cover this question. That's why I remembered that. And I know you both have an opinion on this because Professor Mehmet, you taught this as part of one of the subjects in our courses.
Just curious what the question is.
You got to wait. And it's one that you have an opinion on as well. So the question, drum rolls, is scientists have said there's no scientific evidence of the flood that covered the entire earth during Noah's Ark. How can we go about this? So it's received 11 votes, so I thought I'd mention it, although, yeah.
Maybe we'll just say something very short because, like you said, we have videos on this. And another thing is, it is not relevant to tonight's topic. We rather not really go into, non-relevant questions. But yes, there is scientific evidence to the floods, but more local. There's historical evidence too, not just scientific evidence. You will find records if you go to, for example, even in Australia, Aborigine records there was a great flood. If you go to Africa, Ethiopian history, they say there was this great flood And there was this man on a ship. His name was Neha. That's the term they use. And Neha in Ethiopian means man who lived long. There is records of flood in the Sumerian records history. Utnapishtim, they called them. Nuh alayhi salam. So you find it everywhere. There is just not consensus on a global flood. Scientifically,
was it local
but
or
local globs, local floods. Look, the flood could be global, but not to same extent, because when you think about where Nuh alayhi salam lived, probably around Mesopotamia, in particular, I'm assuming around the Dead Sea, somewhere in Jordan, those areas, and they are the lowest areas geographically on Earth, the lowest thing from the sea level. So maybe they suffered the biggest impact there, but floods did damage a lot of parts of the world. But I think the only people that were destroyed was the people of Noah. That's what the Quran says, Qawmi Nuh. It doesn't say all of humanity was destroyed. That's my personal view.
Yeah, because I'll come to you, Professor Mehmet, next. So sometimes when we think of Noah at the flood, we think the whole earth was covered in water and everyone went except for those who were on that boat, Noah's Ark. So what's your thoughts?
Well, look, if you really think 8.7 million species, can you fit 8.7 million species on one ship? Like, I guess if you really think so, you can't. It's physically impossible. So a global flood is out of the question. I agree with Dr. Omer that I guess, sometimes what you can choose is that in moments like this, you can say, look, I'm just going to believe that it must have been on the thing, it's miraculous, or Quran says so. Well, we don't. The Quran doesn't give you exact definition like that. For a flood to engulf entire Earth, it has to be taller than Mount Everest, like 8,000 meters. There's not enough water on the planet.
Where's the water come from?
Where does the water come from?
Yeah.
But what's likely, there's two scenarios, as Dr. Omer mentioned. One of them could be a massive tsunami, like an asteroid may have hit, or a very huge earthquake where the Basra or Gulf, a huge wave comes and it goes many kilometers inland and it can destroy, I guess, a big chunk or a lot of people. We saw that in 2004, a lot of people died.
Yeah.
Or what is more maybe likely is that what's likely is there was an ice age, or Nuh alayhi salam may have come at a time when humanity was moving away from these hunter-gatherers into really established tribes. And that, like maybe 12,000 years ago, or I don't know, around that time, 15,000 years ago, and there was an ice age, and the sea levels were very low, like 150 meters lower than what it is now. And that's, they say that, scientists say that enabled humans to cross from Africa to Arabian Peninsula, or from Russia into, the Americas. Even Aborigines were able to cross into Australia because sea levels were low. But when climate changed very quickly and that all the ices melted and the sea levels rose, I'm not sure what time period, but surely, when the sea levels are rising and these humans are seeing this, it's flooding a lot of the areas that they were living in. So this flood issue may be related to that humans experience these massive floods everywhere around the world, and that it became an important story.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I want to add two things about Noah's Ark or Noah's floods. One thing, my view is the animals he took on the boat or the ship, the Ark, were only farm animals.
Domestic animals, yeah.
Domestic farm animals, chickens, cow, sheep, goats, horses, things like that. It's impossible to fit all the animals into an ark. I even checked this with ChatGPT. I made them do the math. You need about 50 kilometers of thing. vessel.
Ship.
50,000 meters. It is not possible. So another thing you can think about it, and how did Nuh alayhi salam living in Mesopotamia came and collected kangaroos or koalas or whatever? That's not possible, logically not possible. So it was only domesticated animals, which they would use after the floods. They're the first thing that they were going to use. Another thing, you're going to find this interesting if you didn't watch the video. I believe Noah's Ark had an engine. It wasn't just made up of timber, a simple timber, because there is a thing in the Quran, tanur, when its engine started boiling, as it was, it started moving, And some mufassirs try to interpret that as an oven in his house. What has it got to do with the Quran, the verse, and with the ship? It says when it started boiling, it started moving. So I believe in the past, human beings had civilization. They did advance in some point. Noah's Ark, we estimate about 12,000 years ago, Noah's flood. But prior to that, there may have been civilization on Earth, because as we said, maybe human beings have been around for 600,000 years. There must have been some civilization in the past. We can see that with the pyramids and various other things. Maybe they got destroyed. Allah's Ghazab came, they were destroyed. And the humanity had to start from zero again. I think this is possible. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't have too much to go. We're going to play, I wouldn't say a game, but 30 seconds. We're going to play a game. 30 seconds for each question. There's so many questions.
Rapid fire.
Sorry?
Rapid fire questions.
That's right.
Yeah.
As best as you can. But and only one person answer, otherwise we end up...
One by one.
One by one. So Professor Mehmet, to you, 30 seconds to, 1 minute maybe. Why is there such a consensus in the scientific community about Darwinian evolution? What are the main scientific critiques?
Well, it's because it was the only explanation for biological life on Earth until intelligent design came as an explanation, like a non-religious explanation, and that's now been accepted as an alternative theory, and it's even taught and discussed, and people write books and articles about it.
Okay, Dr. Omer, did dinosaurs come before Adam and Eve?
Definitely, 100%. We can see all the records. Dinosaurs go back up to 225 million years. Human beings do not go back too far. Yeah.
Okay. Professor, how do evolutionists attempt to explain instructions in DNA?
Well, there is no explanation because there is no cause and effect relationship between one nucleotide to another nucleotide in the DNA chain. There's nothing that would cause one to appear in certain succession. It's a code. It's an intelligent code, very clear.
Okay, this one we've kind of done, but it's a recap. Dr. Omer, if humans' origins, Adam can branch, if it was able to branch to so many races and ethnic varieties, which hints on adaptability and minor evolutions, what if evolution is true?
Well, prove it scientifically and then we'll accept it. See, what if is not a question in science. You can look at all possibilities. Look, even if they one day, let us say, prove that evolution is actual fact, that is not going to affect us in any way as believers. Then you can say theistic evolution. It is not an issue. However, we want scientific proof. Don't confuse adaptations and mutations with evolution. That's what the biggest mistakes they're making. Mutations, adaptations are scientific things. They're not evolution. They're not evolution. We have races in human beings only because of the environmental conditions. Like the skin color, as Mehmet mentioned too. Skin color is decided by a protein called melanin. The more you have melanin in your skin, the darker your skin gets.
So
it protects you from the sun.
So it's an expression of the gene based on the environment. It's
Yes.
not actually a mutation.
It's not actually a change,
adaptation.
a macro change. They cannot even show one example of a macro evolution. There is no such a thing. Yeah.
Well, both of my grandfathers, one grandfather has green eyes, the other grandfather has blue eyes. They're both white, and I'm dark and brown eyes. Like, how do you explain that?
Okay, Professor Mehmet, this is to you. I got 3 votes. I'm not. Were wolves and dogs created separately?
Were?
Wolves and dogs, were they created separately?
Well, all
you touched
canine, what they call canines, dogs come from wolves in the wild.
Okay.
Oh, they're related. By the way, can I just say something?
Same chromosome.
Something which is very important. You know a Tasmanian devil? Have you seen for images of that? It walks like a dog,
I've seen cartoons.
but it's a marsupial. So, and then we have the dogs like wolf that looks like Tasmanian tiger. They look like the same, but they're completely different types of animals. How did they end up appearing the same if they evolved through different chains many million years ago? You can't explain this through evolution. It can only be the product of a designer.
Yes.
Okay, I think we'll have 2 more questions. Also, I think our brains are frying at the
People are
moment.
getting tired as well.
Yeah, just
And we're
one
getting
more.
hungry as well. There's food at the back.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
all right.
I hope
Before it
Rebecca's
gets
not
cold.
taking it away. Okay. Maybe you can both have a go at both of these.
Quickly.
Let's do it quickly. What is evolution's strongest piece of evidence?
What?
Evolution's strongest piece
All right.
of evidence.
Evolution's strongest piece of evidence is fossils and genetic similarities. Because I look at the fossils, they say this creature looks like this. It's got the traits of this creature which came afterwards. This may have evolved from this, fossil. So fossil records. The second one is genetic similarities. As Mehmet Hocam has said, with chimpanzees, they say they are our closest cousins because we have 98% similarities with chimps. So it's genetic similarities as well. There's no other evidence.
And maybe another strongest argument is the time. Given time, anything could happen, millions of years. But I think Omer answered that in his presentation as well.
Okay. Look, the questions keep going. So you have, each of you have last word?
You go first. I'm going to do a joke. Finish with a joke.
Finish with a joke?
Yes.
He doesn't want you to steal his thunder, so...
But it's related. It's related.
I'm glad
We'll both finish with a joke.
Okay.
Let's go. You go. Oh, you want me to go
let's
first?
see who's going to
All right, well, I'll go.
Okay.
Look, there's a joke about Nasreddin Hoca. Like Nasreddin Hoca, or Molla Nasreddin, is one day he borrows a pot from his neighbor, and then after a while he returns the pot with another pot, and he says, "Your pot gave birth to another pot," and the neighbor takes, "Okay, fine, I'll take it. If it's getting birth." I hope I'm not mixing the different jokes, but the main thing related to the evolution theory is that another time passes, he borrows money from his neighbor, and neighbor comes and asks for the money, and then he doesn't have it. He can't pay it. He goes, "Look, what I'm going to do is that in my house every morning some sheep pass by, a herd of sheep pass by. I'm going to put some thorns or like wire next to my house, and the wool of this sheep will gather on these wires. I'm going to collect those, and I'm going to make fabrics and sell it. And from the money that I earn from those, I'm going to pay you back." And then he goes, "That's impossible. You can't do that." So evolution is, and then he starts laughing, "That's not possible." He goes, "You've seen the money cash, you're now laughing, aren't you?" I butchered the joke, but the point was that this is really funny. The evolution claims this, that given enough time, all these small things are going to happen, and then it's going to collect, and all of that's going to happen, and then you're going to have a perfect person, and then all of a sudden. So I think the impossibility is hidden in the joke. But I got to go check the joke again so that I tell.
Let us know where to laughter.
Can I ask that? You know what was important for that? Like, you know, when he said your thing gave birth and you have 2 pots now, whatever. It's sort of like if it's convenient to us, we believe it. So
We
it's
accept
like.
it, yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
some evolutionists, they'll do anything to deny the existence of God, even if it means believing in something that's got flaws.
And I have to work on my joke.
All right, some people can tell. It's all right.
Let's try another one.
I'll finish with a joke as well. Some of you would know this, you know. A 7-year-old kid comes to his mother, says, mother, you know, where do human beings come from? Where do we come from? She says, Adam and Eve, of course. And then the kid goes, but my dad keeps on saying we come from the monkeys. And the mother goes, that's your father's side. So we'll finish on that.
That's fantastic. It's something to laugh. Thank you, Professor.
You can edit my part of the video out from the joke.
Yes. All right, we'll do that. Thank you, Professor Mehmet and Dr. Omer,
Thank
for
you.
a very enlightening
Thank you everyone for listening.
presentation and answer.
Inshallah, we'll
Let's go.